Today we're going to discuss how the universe works, the Path of Enlightenment. Well, this is going to be a three-part series where I discuss first the Path of Enlightenment, then the Path of Manifestation, and then finally how the universe, for lack of a better term, evolves. So, getting back to the main point today, how the universe works, the Path of Enlightenment. Some would refer to this as the upward path. It works well enough, and there's some reasons why you would want to describe it this way. But the first thing you need to keep in mind is the process of enlightenment is mechanical. Ignore philosophy that is attached to this. In fact, I will even go a step further and say, if you're inquiring about enlightenment and what it means, and the person you're talking to automatically defaults to philosophy, ignore them. Additionally, if they get into emotion, ignore them again. Your perception of what is happening needs to be fundamentally grounded in the mechanics of how to make it happen. And this is the reason why. As I've talked a lot about in the 60 Skills channel, that true enlightenment state, beyond energy, beyond time, beyond spatial constraint, beyond sensation, beyond emotion, is a thing that can only be defined in the negative. This is one of the few things that the great saints and yogis of all traditions seem to be able to agree upon. So from that standpoint, it needs to be taken very seriously. If someone starts talking about other aspects of it, things that can be positively defined, they're wrong. 2, if they go into the philosophy of it, quite frankly, they're wasting your time. And I say that because, as something that can't be defined, it is by definition only something that can be experienced. So, the philosophy isn't going to help you get there. And people who fall back on this are usually trying to sell you something. Keeping in mind, because very little of the magical or meditative path can be measured scientifically, the community is full of a lot of con men. This is a fact. You have to be very careful about this, and the number one sign of this is, as I said, people who default to philosophy versus mechanism when it comes to enlightenment. 2, the process of enlightenment is about taking the differentiated pieces of reality and putting them back together in order to reach this undifferentiated state. Now, the best way I can describe this is it's akin to having a puzzle on the table. You know, one of those jigsaw puzzle things with hundreds of little pieces in it. But here's the thing. When you put the picture back together, the picture then disappears. This is important to understand why. As you're taking all these differentiated pieces of reality, sensation, sight, sound, emotion, concepts, mental constructs, even Akasha itself, and you put them back together, in your mind's eye, for lack of a better word, it's going to generate a lot of light. Brilliant white light, in fact, and this is the reason why people talk about the light of enlightenment. But that's actually the step before the final step, because that light, just as we talked about previously, can be defined. So that by itself, because it can actually be defined, isn't actually the end point. It's the step beyond that, where that jigsaw puzzle in front of you, that creates a picture, disappears. That's the final stage. Now, what happens when you go there seems to be really, really important. But again, nobody can positively define what that is. So, one of the telltale signs of someone who's accomplished this is they have very little energy around them. Why? Because that energy has crossed over that barrier to one degree or another. So someone who's energetically powerful can have power, and power is useful. But that's not actually a sign of complete enlightenment. But you have to have that energy, everything merging back together, in order to get to that next step. So it's a bit of a conundrum. But again, it's mechanical. Keep this in mind. You're just taking lots of little pieces and putting them back together again. 3. Why is this hard? Okay. Well, as reality comes from this completely undifferentiated state and starts breaking down into all of these smaller and smaller pieces so it can express itself, fair enough, things get sticky. They get emotionally sticky. As anyone who's ever had a deep-seated emotion from trauma or even happiness can explain, once that really gets a hold of you, completely getting rid of it is really, really hard. Also, these differentiated pieces of reality can take on a kind of consciousness of their own. They're not willingly going to give that up either in some cases. So putting all that back together gets really hard. Now, this is what makes putting things back together again, so you can put the puzzle together and then have it disappear, gets kind of tough. Because sometimes the pieces don't want to go back together. Sometimes you're holding on to them a little too hard for good reasons or bad reasons. Again, you still have a physical existence you have to take care of. And being wary of people if you live in a dangerous society, well, that's a survival skill. You don't really want to let go of that altogether. So, what are the different ways we can go about doing this? Well, classically speaking, there are generally 2. There's what I call the brute force or overwhelming power method, or there's more of a finesse type method. The overwhelming power method is, generally speaking, the most common. Why? Learning the method is quicker. Applying it, though, requires you to do a lot of things that are frequently unpleasant. What are examples of this? Okay. Retaining your sexual essence for long periods of time. Going on a vegan diet so it makes it easier for your body's energies to rise up. Okay. Engaging in hours and hours and hours of concentrated practice. All right. Practicing in tightly enclosed spaces, like in a cave, for example, so the energy gets thick and builds and ricochets all around you until your mind gets overwhelmed. This overwhelming power approach being most common because it's, quite frankly, the easiest to pull off, can be physically trying, certainly mentally trying. When you get to that point where reality recombines and goes into whatever happens afterwards, it's disturbing. It can be hard on you physically. And here's the other problem. It's generally uncontrolled. So this is the reason why people who have that true enlightenment experience a lot of times don't know how it happened exactly. They'll just tell you, well, I was practicing a lot and kind of occurred. This also results in something that turns into an experience, but doesn't turn into an ability. And again, this is generally a combination of poor technique and poor pedagogy or teaching skills. Okay. What's the other approach to this? Well, the other approach to this is one of finesse. Now here's the problem with that. The finesse-based approach takes a really long time to pull off. But how does it work? Okay, generally speaking, what it does is you learn how to project your mind, for lack of a better word, into all the different levels of reality, but discreetly. You gain the ability to do this in a very focused manner. 60 skills system, or that of IIH from Franz Barden, you'd be talking about the vital, the astral, the mental, the akashic, and so on. Okay. Then you learn how to neutralize all of the forces at that level of reality. Okay. This can take a long time. Franz Barden system, for example, the vital level, there are 27 different letters you have to learn how to work with. But here's the thing. By taking that finesse approach, you learn how to equalize with all of those energies. That in turn makes them looser and easier to elevate back up into that complete or undifferentiated whole. Interesting. So you learn to do this at the different levels of reality. In the 60 skills curriculum, we have the letters for vital, the planets for astral, the zodiac for mental, and the Sephiro for the akashic. So as you get better and better at doing this, and this can take several years, eventually you get to the point where you can join all these energies together more or less upon command. Okay, that gets you to that final stage before everything disappears. But because you've learned to work with all of these forces individually, you've learned how to let them go individually, now it becomes an ability. It becomes something you can do upon command. I'm here to tell you, in the meditative traditions, this is incredibly rare. But again, this differentiates between an experience and an ability. When we're talking about magic and meditation, as many people know from this channel, it's a really big deal because there's lots of people who've had experiences and very few people with ability. So now you're at that point of all of the energies merging together. Okay. Now you have to skip over to that next end point. That's that true enlightenment point where everything disappears. Personally, from experience, I can tell you what that looks like is all these different energies merge upwards into one. I'm contained in this space of extreme brilliance. I'll lose sensation of my body at some point. So now I'm just not in the light, I am the light. Okay, fair enough. I am, but again, it's hard to explain because reality starts to break down at that point. And as I'm looking up, there's this boundary layer, or this thing that the energy is slowly spooling and kind of processing through. And then at a certain point, I disappear. Now, I don't know how long I'm gone for when this happens, and it's not the same thing as falling asleep. People make that mistake too, including me. That's that truly enlightened state. That's that nirvanic realm that goes beyond energy, sensation, emotion, spatial constraint. What happens there seems to be pretty important. It took me several years to learn how to do this. Can't do it every time. The more I work with it, the more repeatable it becomes. But that's the path of enlightenment. And here's the thing, is once that happens, a lot of people quit. You know, I think depending upon the level of someone's health or well-being, they might just decide to die at that point. But depending upon your personal goals in life and desires, okay, there's also the path of manifestation, which is the path back down, where you take this undifferentiated whole. You come out of the nothingness, or whatever that nirvanic realm is, back into the light, and then you start breaking the light down into different pieces so that things can manifest. And that will be the topic of the next video on the path of manifestation. So, if you like the topic of today's lecture, please give us a like down below and consider subscribing to the channel. If you'd like to learn more about the 60 Skills curriculum, you can check out the details portion of the video in the box below. Or you can go to www.60skills.com. Again, that's SIXTYSKILLS.com. Otherwise, train hard and be well.